Well, please have a seat. Well, good morning to you all, and welcome to a chilly States Chamber with broken heating for this year's Colin Powell Rotary Student Peace Debate, which of course is also being broadcast live, probably to quite a small audience, but you can watch it all again tonight at home if you want to on the States Assembly website. Well, I'm delighted that we're here today. It's wonderful to see so many schools taking part. We always enjoy welcoming young people to this chamber to hear you as you take the opportunity to stand up and be heard in this historic environment, which is at the heart of Jersey's democracy. As you know, you're sitting in the seats normally occupied by states members. You're in the seats, the connétables sit there, and the senators will sit there after the next election. And you're sitting in the seats of the deputies from all over the island. And you are in the dean's seat there. That's where the dean sits. And you're in the seat often occupied by the Solicitor General. So that's where you all are. And today we meet to discuss the question of whether the Nobel Peace Prize still has an important role in promoting world peace. And I'm sure you'll all bring interesting and current views to this question. The Nobel Peace Prize, I'm sure you all know, was first awarded in 1901, 125 years ago, and is still awarded to those who, I quote, have done the most or best work for fraternity between nations, for the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and for the holding and promotion of peace congresses. Today, we're lucky to have Tony Allchurch here, a long-term member of the Jersey Rotary, who will give our keynote speech in a moment. Before we hear from him, I want to give you some top tips on this morning. I think you've been told when you want to speak to press the button to make sure your microphone comes on. And when you want to ask a question of another school during the question time, again, press your button and I'll write down your name. If you're in the right seats, your name will come up here on the list of members in front of me. And if you agree with something somebody says, and perhaps this might happen at the end of Tony's speech, the way in which we show recognition isn't by clapping our hands in the States Chamber, it's by stamping our feet. So after 3, I'm going to all ask you to have a go at stamping your feet. So 1, 2, 3. Well, that is the noise that members make when they agree with somebody else in the States debate. So thank you very much for trying that out. So I invite Tony to address us all. Tony.
Thank you, sir. Alfred Nobel was born in Stockholm, Sweden in 1833. He was an industrialist, inventor, chemist, and engineer. His invention of dynamite and later of gelignite was primarily to serve his interests in quarrying and mining. But when he came to realize that his inventions were being used for military purposes, he eventually became a leading manufacturer of armaments. Later in life, he was described as the Merchant of Death by a French newspaper, and he reacted dramatically by changing his will and allocating 94% of his vast fortune to those who confer the greatest benefit on mankind in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace. On 10th of December 1896, he died in Italy from a brain hemorrhage. Before his death, he established 4 Nobel Prizes, which were to be awarded annually on the advice of a special committee based in Sweden. However, for the Peace Prize, he gave instruction in his will for the creation of a Norwegian Nobel Committee based in Oslo to make this award. The Norwegian Parliament appoints the Nobel Committee of Academics, and they have the task of examining the nominations that have been received each year. This process commences in January, and the committee seeks to achieve a unanimous decision before they are ready to make the official announcement of the winner or winners. This happens on 10th of October, which is the birth date of Alfred Nobel. Since March 1901, the Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded annually to people who, in Nobel's own words, and here I repeat what the pages had just said, have done the most or the best work for fraternity between nations, for the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and for the holding and promotion of peace congresses. The Oxford Dictionary has described it as the most prestigious prize in the world. However, unlike the Nobel Prizes for the sciences and literature, the Peace Prize often attracts controversy and criticism. And I think we shall discover some of those criticisms in the debate that ensues. Such is the secrecy about the nomination procedure for the Nobel Prize that the list of candidates is not made public for 50 years. The Nobel Peace Prize is usually awarded to a worthy individual who has earned their recognition working alone. But occasionally, a dedicated team of people working together will be honoured with the award. This year, 2025, there were 338 candidates for the Peace Prize, of which 244 were individuals and 94 were organisations. This year, the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize was Maria Corina Machado for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. For over a decade, she has faced persecution, restrictions, arbitrary decisions and threats to her life by the Maduro regime as a consequence of her unrelenting campaign for a free and democratic Venezuela. NBC News in the United States reported that when a reporter asked President Trump for his reaction to this award, he said that Machado had told him on the phone, wait for it, that she was accepting the award in his honour. You probably know that President Trump had made it widely known that he felt he was not only a suitable candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize, but he felt that it was actually due to him. Not only is this a remarkable achievement for her modest but determined individual, but the award recognises the qualities and characteristics that identify worthy winners of the Nobel Peace Prize. The prize has been awarded 106 times now to 143 laureates, 112 individuals and 31 organisations from 1901 to today, with notable winners including Marie Curie, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, Malala Yousafzai, and Aung San Suu Kyi. In spite of this list of luminaries, there are occasionally surprises, so that individuals who are disappointed not to have been selected for the prize may seek to air their feelings that their work deserved to be recognised. In recent years, the Rotary Club of Jersey has been pleased to take small groups of Jersey students to the University of Winchester for the annual Peace Jam. This is a conference where they have been privileged to engage with one of the Peace Laureates who have been in attendance. For those of us who have participated in these events, it has been a truly inspiring and memorable experience to be in the company and to have discussions with people who have been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And that is my contribution to the debate today.
Should we all thank Tony in the traditional way? It also warms you up, I think. Bit of foot stamping. Right, we now move on to the peace debate proper. Each school has up to 5 minutes to make their presentation, their points, and then the other schools have 5 minutes to ask questions or make points in response. And the first school is Jersey College for Girls, and their presentation is on the proposition, the Nobel Peace Prize is a political pawn. And who wants to start?
Good morning, Chamber. Once upon a time, the Nobel Peace Prize stood as a shining symbol of humanity's highest ideals, hope, justice and compassion. But today that symbol has cracked. The Nobel Peace Prize, created over a century ago by Alfred Nobel, was supposed to honour those who worked to reduce armories and promote peace between nations. His intentions were in fact honourable, but intentions alone will never guarantee impact. Over 100 years later, the prize that once fought to unite the world now struggles to stay relevant in a world consumed by conflict.
Let's face it, the Nobel Peace Prize has become increasingly politicised. It's no longer about courage, but convenience. In 2009, Barack Obama received the Peace Prize less than a year into his presidency, before he even had the chance to shape foreign relations. Even he admitted he was surprised and unworthy upon receiving the prize. The committee said that they had hoped to encourage him, but when a prize is given for potential rather than proven peace, it loses all credibility. This is not an isolated incident either. In 1973, Henry Kissinger was awarded the Peace Prize for negotiating a ceasefire in the Vietnam War, the same war in which he authorized bombing campaigns in Cambodia and Laos that kills tens of thousands of innocent individuals. The same war that even continued after the prize was awarded. 2 Nobel Committee members resigned as a result of this scandal. Furthermore, his co-recipient, Lê Duc Tho, even refused the award, saying real peace had not yet been achieved. When the winners reject the prize, what does it say about the prize itself?
Even when the award goes to truly deserving individuals, its impact often stops at applause. Take Malala, for example, who received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014 for a perilous fight for girls' education. The world celebrated her bravery, yet a decade later, girls in her homeland and in Afghanistan are banned from schools under Taliban rule. The prize elevates a person, not a population. It raises awareness, not equality. Similarly, in 1994, Yitzhak Rabin, Shimon Peres, and Yasser Arafat were honoured for the Oslo Accords, recognised as a breakthrough in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. But only a year later, Rabin was assassinated by an extremist who opposed peace. The Nobel Peace Prize does not protect peace, nor the peacemakers themselves.
And while these ceremonies unfold in Oslo, the world burns. Wars rage in Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, and Myanmar. Over 114 million people are displaced by conflict, the highest number in human history. Meanwhile, global military spending has soared to over 2.4 trillion, a record high. If the Nobel Peace Prize was truly promoting peace, shouldn't these numbers be falling, not rising? Moreover, the prize is out of touch with our times. Peace today is not just about ending wars. It is about confronting climate collapse, digital warfare, racial injustice and economic inequality. Yet, the Nobel Committee clings to its old ways, rewarding individuals while ignoring the collective movements like Black Lives Matter that drive real modern change.
At best, the Peace Prize inspires, but inspiration without action is not and will never be peace. Real peace is built by those in the background, the nameless strangers, the forgotten communities, the local mediators, who will never stand on the stage in Oslo, but hold peace together every single day. So yes, the Peace Prize may still carry prestige, but it no longer carries purpose. It is a symbol without substance, a relic of good intentions, in a world that needs real solutions. Because peace cannot be awarded once a year. It must be built, lived and protected every single day. True peace isn't found in Oslo. It is found in action, justice and the courage to change what a medal cannot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Girls College. Now, does anyone want to ask any questions or make... Yes, the first light is from Travis Durkin.
I have a question for the second speaker. You criticise the Nobel as a kind of symbol for the hope of peace. Isn't hope for peace also essential in promoting peace in the modern society?
Yes, who wants to deal with that? Yes.
Well, even if it's promoting peace, even if it's doing it in a wrong way, surely promoting peace alone shouldn't be enough. Even if everyone is aware with the Nobel Peace Prize about things like wars around the world, I don't think that is enough, and neither do we. We think that prizes like this shouldn't be awarded just for promoting peace, but also for making peace and change and impact all around the world.
Thank you. Question from Cole Gueno. That was me, sir. Oh, that's you. Sorry, your light's on. Yes, Cole.
I said my question, sorry.
Really? Any more questions? Evie Thompson.
I have a question for the last speaker. Even if the prize is just symbolic, isn't symbolism important for inspiring change and raising awareness?
Yes, who wants to do that one?
Sorry, please, can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Even if the prize is just symbolic, isn't symbolism important for inspiring change and raising awareness?
Yes.
Well, I do agree. Symbolism is important in inspiring change and motivating young people. But when the peace guarantees change and when peace guarantees change, symbolism isn't enough.
Thank you. Yes, do you want to ask a question now? Yes.
So you specifically said that the Nobel Peace Prize does not support groups like Black Lives Matter, even though they gave the prize to individuals like Martin Luther King. So it does find that very just, like, if they gave the prize to an advocate for Black Lives Matter, how are they not promoting Black Lives Matter?
Who wants to take that question?
As we mentioned in our speech, while we do agree it is obviously good to give prizes to individuals, we think that the communities should be given the prize instead of just individuals, and giving one prize to one person isn't going to change the whole community, because it's just because they've done one thing doesn't mean the whole community's been. The prize, if my head teacher got the prize, it wouldn't bring the whole community up, it would just bring that one individual up, as we mentioned before.
Thank you. Yes.
How would you choose to achieve peace if a prize is invalid, as you described?
Yes, who wants to take this one?
Well, we think that supporting local peacemakers, as we did mention in our speech, for example, using fundings that would go to this prestigious award, we think using these fundings toward things like schools and teachers in impoverished areas could benefit the younger generation and possibly shape our future better.
Thank you. William Keir.
You said that true peace was not found in Oslo. However, does the Nobel Peace Prize not raise awareness for these causes?
Who wants to respond to that question? Raising awareness causes. Yes.
Even though it raises awareness, it doesn't actually create change. People are powered by creating peace. Just awareness is not enough.
Thank you very much. Another question from you, Travis?
Right, but the whole point of the prize is literally awareness. Like, let's look at mines. There's an international campaign to ban mines, and once that was awarded, the amount of awareness and debate and legislation that's created from that single prize almost literally changed so much. So, like, how do you expect the prize, once given out, to just, like, literally make peace? That can't happen. The whole point of the prize is awareness. Like, I don't think that's really hard to understand.
Well, take the war in Ukraine, for example. It's been going on for quite a long time and everyone is aware, but nothing has really changed in Ukraine. These war zones, everyone knows what's going on, but people, the governments and people in power will not do anything just because people are aware. We need to strive for real modern change.
Well, thank you very much, and that brings that period of questions to an end. So thank you very much, Girls College, for dealing with those tricky questions. We now move on to De La Salle and their presentation is the Nobel Peace Prize, a symbol of prestige and politics, not progress. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we come today to state the obvious fact that the Nobel Peace Prize is far from relevant or significant in promoting world peace in modern society. While we recognise the prestige of the prize and its long-standing history, it is inarguable now that the Nobel represents political bias and not progress toward world peace. I will begin by questioning the media attention and politics behind the prize, and my partner, Mr. Keir, will follow, recounting relevant historical winners. Firstly, those who say the Nobel is relevant would suggest that, because the prize raises significant media attention for peacemakers, that it is helping raise awareness of movements for positive change. However, while the Nobel may raise brief global attention, this quickly fades, and is mostly intangible. A key example is the awarding of the prize to Nihon Hirankayo in 2024, which highlights the near futility of the awareness raised by the Nobel. Despite the media attention this foundation gained, there has been no nuclear disarmament by international governments. Awareness without global, structural support or policy reform will not result in transformative change for world peace. It's clear raising awareness is simply insufficient to drive change. Secondly, it is evident that the committee itself has political charge and that often winners reflect Western geopolitical influence. To begin with, the structure of the awarding body, the Nobel Committee, is inherently politicised. Members are elected by the Norwegian Parliament, and therefore the committee mirrors the Parliament's political leanings and relative strength of each party within the government. How can a prize, supposedly for international peace, reflect domestic politics of its home country? Furthermore, internal resignations, like those in the case of Obama's awarding, mirror how politics and ideological divides evidently creep into the selection process. In addition, Western geopolitics clearly plays a role in shaping selection. Dissidents in countries criticised by the West, like China and Russia, have previously been awarded the prize, an example being Liu Xiaobo in 2010. In this case, the Nobel led to worsening diplomatic relations between the West and China. However, there has yet to be winners critical of Western politics or foreign policy. For a committee who claims to be non-political, this is striking. The political controversies that have been sparked by the awarding of this prize is endless. The Nobel Committee are yet to revoke an award amid mass controversies, claiming no responsibility for what laureates do after being awarded the prize. An expert in international relations at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, Torbjørn Knudsen, says giving an aspirational honour to politicians who find themselves in the global spotlight in order to encourage a political process is always going to be a risk.
The Nobel Peace Prize is often portrayed as the pinnacle of moral achievement. Yet history tells us a different story, one less about peace and more about politics and prestige. Take Henry Kissinger. Awarded in 1973 for negotiating the Paris Peace Accords. The Vietnam War was raging, and Kissinger had authorized the bombing campaigns in Cambodia and Laos. Does this sound like the actions of a man who is so dedicated to peace he deserves an award for it? I don't think so, and neither did two Nobel Committee members who resigned in protest. Even Kissinger later tried to return the prize. Abiy Ahmed, Ethiopia's Prime Minister, was honoured in 2019 for ending a decades-long conflict with Eritrea. Yet that very same year, he launched a military offensive that sparked a civil war, which, according to the UN and the EU, killed at least 600,000 people. The Nobel Committee would even urge Ahmed to cease the conflict. And what about today? In 2025, the Nobel Peace Prize went to Venezuelan politician Maria Corina Machado. This sparked accusations of political bias. Critics argue her ties to foreign intervention and sanctions make this less about peace and more about endorsing a wider geopolitical agenda. What do these examples say about the prize's very meaning? Can it truly symbolize peace? When awards are handed out amid ongoing conflicts, is it really about hope, or is it a political gesture dressed up as moral triumph? So let us ask, is the Nobel Peace Prize about preventing war, or a stage for politics disguised as peace? Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you, De La Salle, for that interesting presentation. We now have some questions, and the first one is going to be from Eleanor Doherty.
While I agree with you to some extent, if the prize is only political, why do grassroots activists and non-government organisations also win the award?
Yes.
We were suggesting that the selection process is inherently politicised rather than that the awarding of the prize itself is political. Of course, the prize, as you said, is awarded to grassroots movements and non-governmental organisations, but throughout history, the award has also been awarded to the EU, which is obviously a political organisation.
Thank you. There was another light. Yes, Naya Watson.
You said that it's only about change, but surely if you've done such a great deed as promoting peace, you'd want recognition for your actions.
Yes.
While we do agree symbolism matters, we must emphasise that it only particularly matters when there's a follow-through with it. You cannot have an award without support mechanisms, as it becomes a moral applause rather than meaningful change.
Thank you. A question from Sam Sterry and then Lola Houghton. Sam.
Can you blame the prize for causing increased conflicts when it's meant to achieve peace?
I would suggest yes, of course. The prize sparking controversies that may lead to more conflict, for example, in the awarding of Liu Xiaobo, which created conflict between the CCP and dissidents within China. How can a prize about peace spark controversies and cause conflict?
Thank you. Lola.
Can you name any international award that has done more to promote peace awareness or human rights than the Nobel Peace Prize?
It's a tricky one.
Sorry, could you just repeat that one more time?
Can you name any international award that has done more to promote peace awareness or human rights than the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, I currently can't think of any off the top of my head. I would suggest that as we move forward into future, that we kind of bring in a less politicised award or multiple awards rather than just a singular award. That's what I would suggest.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Travis.
So you said that the prize promotes Western values, but even though that there has been a diverse list of laureates from Africa, the Middle East, even places like Myanmar, like, if you mean like it's Western values like peace, justice, Well, I guess you are right that peace and justice are Western values, but
any response to that?
Could you actually repeat what your actual question is, please?
Well, I think it was more of a statement than a question. You are entitled to make statements or points if you want to. Was it more of a response, was it, as opposed to a question?
It was a question.
It was a question. So what was the question then that you...
How can it promote Western values when it is literally also giving laureates from Africa, the Middle East, Asia, just for some examples?
Yes, thank you.
Well, the Nobel has become increasingly diverse throughout history. One of the members of the committee himself said that they need to do more work in order to honour both male and female representations and diverse representations from other nations as well.
Thank you. Matilda Nicholson.
I'm here.
Your mic is on. Oh, there you are.
If you have such an issue with how the committee is currently, what would you do instead to fix it?
Well, the committee votes in a very secret and private manner. I suggest that there should definitely be a more democratic vote where members of the public would be able to vote instead, as they would be able to definitely have a more wide range view of the award given.
Thank you. Another question from you? The light's on still.
Yeah, I know. I was just saying, if it was democratic with everybody, wouldn't that still bring bias to the team because impoverished countries wouldn't be able to have an opinion in it?
Well, I mean, they just need to sort of like look at everyone, and like I said before, the Peace Prize is given to the person that has done the most or the best awards. So, whilst it may be subjective for people in less impoverished countries, they should definitely be able to vote for the most deserving winner.
One last question from you, Travis.
So you said that everyone should be able to vote who wins the prize, but wouldn't this lead to populism? Like, wouldn't that just lead to populism? It's cool. And also, like, lots of nations are dictatorships where their people won't be able to vote, and especially like countries like continents like Africa and undemocratic places, they wouldn't have a voice, like that, making it even more undemocratic than it was before, and allowing populism, wouldn't it?
Would you say that allowing more people to vote rather than a committee who acts in secrecy is less democratic? I don't think that's a reasonable assumption.
Well, thank you, Darasel, for your questions and dealing with those questions you have. And that completes your presentation. We now move on to Holia, and their presentation is entitled Peace, Prized and Paradoxes. Yes, who wants to start? Good morning.
Good morning. Alfred Nobel, the man whose factories produced explosives and armaments, left his fortune to reward those who confer the greatest benefits to humankind. There's irony in that. The merchant of death funding a prize for peace. And how can impact be born from contradiction? We're not Nobel laureates or world diplomats. We're students, citizens of a generation that will inherit the conflicts, climate crises, and injustices of our era. We ask this question not as spectators, but as the people who will live with the consequences. Does the Nobel Peace Prize still have a role in promoting peace?
The Nobel Peace Prize was born from contradiction, and it still wrestles with it. Henry Kissinger, whose policies contributed to the devastation in East Timor and played a role in enabling the Khmer Rouge's rise in Cambodia, was awarded the Peace Prize in 1973. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed won it in 2019 for ending the conflict with Eritrea, only to lead his country into a devastating civil war, with its influences still being noticeable in the ongoing abuses towards the Tigrayan people. Donald Trump continues to covet it and has cast shade on others who have received it. He was nominated this year by Benjamin Netanyahu, not, as critics would suggest, to honor Trump for his commitment to peace in the Middle East, but to curry political favor for him. And in 2025, Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader, became the first from her country to win it, as she protested for democratic rights. However, once she won the award, she immediately started calling for aid from the US, to help overthrow the Venezuelan government? Where is the legitimacy of her dedicating this prize to Trump so soon after? To that end, many of us firmly believe that the Nobel Peace Prize had, at best, lost its credibility or peddled false hope, and at worst, Peace Prize watched those who seek to betray peaceful ideals by providing political cover. But perhaps that tension is precisely the point. Peace is complex, nuanced, contested, and never politically pure.
We know that recognition gives voice to the voiceless. Prestige can be powerful. When organisations like Doctors Without Borders or the World Food Programme receive it, it reminds us that peace is built not just by politicians, but by people. Doctors, journalists, teachers, campaigners, and young people like us. Think of Malala Yousafzai, who turned a near-fatal attack into a global movement for girls' education. The prize amplified her message and transformed outrage into international policy. But when recognition isn't visibility, it's vanity. The prize holds the ability to shine a light on peace work that might otherwise stay in the dark. But all too often, it is used to promote individuals, not community. So, should we discard it on the grounds of its apparent controversies and hypocrisies, or should we in fact acknowledge that it's precisely the controversies of headlines versus humanity and prestige versus progress that keeping the discussion about the very nature of peace active?
Since 1901, the Nobel Peace Prize has honoured those who have done the most or best work for fraternity between nations. But how exactly have these recipients been decided? The truth is, the process is far from transparent. A small committee, appointed by the Norwegian Parliament, makes a decision behind closed doors in January for an award that only presented near the end of the year, where a whole variety of events may have taken place between them. There is no global vote, no universal standard, just subjective judgment. And what has that judgment produced? Awards to figures whose legacies are deeply controversial. As mentioned, Henry Kissinger, who caused long-lasting effects due to his involvements in Southeast Asia, received the prize. Barack Obama was awarded it in 2009, just 9 months into his presidential term, and before his administration later expanded drone warfare to continue his predecessor's war on terror in the Middle East. If these are the examples of fraternity between nations, then what does the prize truly represent? A symbol of peace, or a political gesture dressed up as virtue? So no, the Nobel Peace Prize doesn't end wars. It doesn't promote global peace. At its best, it is a recognition of endeavour, and at its worst, it is just another medal for the bourgeoisie. It doesn't recognise the true courage of those striving for ultimate peace, and the conscience of the world that supports them.
Yes, it was born from dynamite, and maybe that's exactly the problem. As former Irish President Mary Robinson admitted, who cares about the Nobel Prize? We care about peace. That statement itself reveals the truth. The award has become symbolic noise, detached from the real struggles it claims to honour. The guns Alfred Nobel once forged still roar louder than the speeches made in Oslo. From destruction comes disillusion, not determination. From contradiction comes hypocrisy, not conscience. The prize no longer reminds the world of courage amid chaos. It reminds us instead of how easily prestige can overshadow progress, and how hollow recognition feels when the violence it was meant to silence continues unchecked. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The first question is from Nia Watson and then Ava Wakeham.
Whilst I agree that Trump's belief intervene with the wars was solely political, surely the fact that he helped prevent wars and has not started a single war is arguably peaceful.
Who wants to take that question?
What about the... you mentioned that he was preventing further developments of wars, but what about ending current wars? We understand that the ceasefire in Gaza was implemented, but how many days in office did Trump say he would solve it? He said one day, and it'd take him almost this whole year to prevent any further conflict.
What about the 3 years raging in Ukraine? Nothing's been done with Russia to prevent that now. No ceasefires, no extra aids, no cut of funds to the Russian government. How do you explain his deeply controversial attack on preventing further wars when more wars are continue to be fueled by his lack of intervention?
Thank you. Ava Wakeham.
In regards to your comment about Donald Trump, would it diminish the integrity of the award if his nomination fails to reach success?
Who's going to take that one? Yes.
Sorry, I just want to clarify what. You're saying it would diminish if he didn't win it? I mean, I think kind of the very nature of his approach to winning it is slightly paradoxical to the nature of the prize itself, in that true peace shouldn't be demanding recognition, it should be working for peace itself, not for some kind of prize from it. So I think that what would really diminish the meaning of the prize would be someone winning it after having demanded some recognition for their work instead of working for the true benefit of humanity in itself.
Thank you. We can have a question from Luca McManus, and then Isabella Piscal, and then the lights off, then Liana Keith. Yes, Luca.
Why focus on controversial laureates like Kissinger, Abiy Ahmed and Machado? Are they not exceptions?
I'll take that one.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Why focus on controversial laureates like Henry Kissinger, Abiy Ahmed and Machado? Are these not exceptions?
While there are uncontroversial laureates, the very fact that there are so many controversial laureates is the reason why we highlighted these ones. And that the Peace Prize keeps going to these controversial laureates, and the impact that they're having on the world isn't what they were awarded the prize for.
Isabella.
While I do agree with you that prestige does overshadow the progress, what are your ideas on really recognising progress?
Sorry, it was a question. How would I recognise progress?
What are your ideas in recognising real progress that's been made in wars instead of the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, if just wars or anything. Well, you could be giving it to organisations, like you guys were saying, such as Doctors Without Borders and the World Food Programme, who help many people and are often overshadowed by political laureates who think that they're just ticking boxes to get this prize and not actually achieving peace.
Thank you. Next question from Liana Keith.
How far do you agree with the idea that the prize is not a paradox if you view its purpose not as a guarantee of perfect global harmony, but as a platform to amplify and inspire human efforts towards peace, justice and diplomacy?
Yes.
I think the main question that we're begging to find the answer to today is not whether it's an advocate for trying to highlight the peace, it's the fact that it has done nothing to solve it or include any sort of resolution to the problems that we have in our world today. And it's been going on for the past century. I think the main thing that we want to look for here is not the fact that we can show people that they have awareness about this, but the fact that the people who are not, and the organisations who are not recognised for the hard work that they've done, and the ones that are truly striving for peace, that's what we want to highlight and what we want to make sure that people strive to do to make the world a better place.
Thank you. Sam Spears.
Multiple times during your speech, you mentioned Alfred Nobel's position as an arms manufacturer, but surely even though he did do that such thing, it doesn't diminish the prize's legitimacy at promoting peace in the world.
I think not necessarily, but I think there's definitely an argument about kind of where
that where his want for promoting peace has come from after spending a lifetime not advocating for that and actually contributing to global issues. So I think there's definitely an argument of then trying to create something out of guilt in the later years of your life doesn't necessarily make up for the things you've done previously, especially if you're not fully working to fix those issues. And I think that should be taken into account, especially since the prize is still named after him.
And a final question from Evie Thompson.
Isn't it unfair to completely dismiss the prize because its founder had a controversial business background?
Whilst we agree that we shouldn't dismiss the prize completely because of its controversial background, it's the fact that the award keeps going sent to these controversial figures and these organisations that make us question the legitimacy and whether the Nobel Peace Prize is actually as significant as people present it to be.
Well, thank you, Holia, for dealing so well with those questions. I'll move on to Haute Vallée, and their proposition or presentation is on the following issue. Why is the Nobel Peace Prize still important today?
Since 1901, more than 130 individuals and organisations have been honoured for changing the world. But why does the medal matter so? For every year, someone stands up to tyranny, violence, and injustice, and the world does take notice. And that is the power of the prize. The prize has recognised those who dedicated their lives to promoting peace, reconciliation, and human rights. And today, more than a century later, the prize still remains as important as ever. Firstly, the Nobel Peace Prize, it draws attention to global issues and pressing issues in a world where critics go unnoticed or silenced. The prize shines a spotlight on that challenge, on that person, like climate change, nuclear disarmament. Sure, they may have failed actually doing a lot, but it's important that they actually made it a global talking point. Take, for example, Malala, Malala survived assassination attempts for advocating for girls' education, and yet her inspired millions and sparked a global movement. Her reconciliation brought the struggle of girls' education in dangerous regions to the forefront of the international conversation. Now, second, the prize promotes and empowers those who risk everything for justice. Their voices are silenced by dictators and despots, and yet the Nobel Peace Prize reminds the world that they see these activists and performers who were often under the threat from oppressive regimes. International reconciliation through the Nobel Peace Prize offers a measure of protection, making it harder for dictatorships to silence them. For example, Liu Weifao, the Chinese dissident, is a striking example. His award drew the world's wide attention to human rights abuses in China. And third, the Nobel Peace Prize influences policies and sparks debate. It pressures government, inspires grassroots movements, and encourages global dialogue. It's very important. The international campaign to ban landmines, honoured with the prize, constantly directed to international treaties banning these deadly weapons. And finally, the Nobel Peace Prize carries symbolic power. It is a reminder of humanity's commitment to peace and justice. It celebrates courage and inspires new generations to continue their struggle for a better world. Some critics argue that the prize is politicalised, and yeah, peace is politicalised, while it's true that peace itself is politicalised. The Nobel Peace Committee has consistently recognised individuals and movements across the political spectrum. Even controversial choices provoke debate, which in itself is a catalyst for progress. Now, remember, the Nobel Peace Prize is more than a medal or a ceremony. It is a beacon of hope, a tool for justice, and a testament to the enduring value of peace. For these reasons, it is still important, even if it's not perfect. Thank you.
First question is going to be from Cole, then Isabella, then Naya.
Do you believe that awareness without global structural support or policy change will ever result in transformative change globally?
Yes, it can and it can't. But it's better to try than not to try for peace. Like I said in the speech, the global campaign to ban landmines were directly contributed by the Nobel Peace Prize.
Thank you. Isabella.
You mentioned Malala and how she received the prize. And while I do agree with you that she did make a huge impact on girls' education, 11 years ago in 2014, she received the prize, yet women and girls are still oppressed in Afghanistan. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's really tragic that so many women, girls are oppressed by the Taliban. But here is the thing, right? It was going all okay. It was all going all fine until the Taliban took over. If, well, America didn't fall out, girls' education would still be fine in Afghanistan. So it is that when it did happen, it was really good, but thanks to terrorists, it's no longer possible in Afghanistan. But it's important that everyone knows about it. It's important that everyone knows the human rights abuses in Afghanistan. It brings this education problem to the world and other dangerous regions.
Thank you. Naya Watson.
You stated that every year there's been a prize. Were you aware that during World War II, Hitler was nominated, so no prize was awarded that year?
It's such a great question. I love how you know Hitler was nominated, but you should also know that Hitler was nominated as a joke. No one seriously thought that Hitler was deserving of the prize. So I think it's just a bit disingenuous that you would say that, but thank you.
Alexander Powell next, and then Alec Linsky.
You defend the importance of the prize, but I ask you, can you name a single instance in the last 20 years where the prize has resulted in real concrete policy change moving towards peace?
Yes, okay. Yes, I can. The international campaign to ban landmines. Thank you.
Alex.
Mentioning of the other question, I think my question is promoting what peace? You were talking about that advocating for further movements, but what about Obama? He was nominated and won it in 2009, but what about Guantanamo Bay? That's not peaceful. That is continuation of the war on terror. What about Ahmed and Kissinger? What challenges are they facing in terms of trying to advocate for those peace? From what I understanding, they're in their offices signing a piece of paper and getting a medal for it. Where is the actual dirty work done by the lost voices and those communities that are trying to strive for peace?
Yeah, I think Obama's such a good example of the Promise Prize. He was awarded this about only 9 months into his term as POTUS. Because this prize, the prize given out to him, it wasn't actually for peace. It was more of an encouragement of the peace. And like I said at the end of the speech, it's not that the prize is perfect, it's that it's important. And as I said, the prize is clearly relevant. But yeah, Obama, probably not the best one. It did encourage peace, but it wasn't because he did peace. And especially for someone who increased drone strikes. Like I would say, every US president is a war criminal in some way. But yeah, it's a really good point.
Niall MacDonald.
How does awarding a prize create peace when the committee provides no mechanisms for action?
Yeah, because like I have said before, it is not about that it is making peace, it's about it is encouraging it. No organisation can just make peace like that. It is impossible. But if you can encourage peace, that is truly amazing. It is better to try than not to try to make peace, is it not?
Eleanor Doherty.
How does awarding the prize to controversial figures, like leaders involved in conflicts, support the claim it remains relevant?
Let me answer this. Has there been a prize? Has there been a prize that has ever promoted more peace, freedom, and equality than the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, as I have said, it encourages peace. And I have said it is not perfect. I have made it quite clear, in fact, it is not perfect, thank you. But yeah, it is about encouraging peace. It's not about making peace, but encouraging it, awarding it. So yes, thank you for that question.
Luke Figueira-Aird.
So you mentioned justice within your speech, but isn't the very foundations of peace about forgiveness and not retribution?
That is just such a good question. And, well, when I mean justice, it is not that I'm saying that the foreign invader should be hanged and executed. I'm talking about the justice for the people who are living in the territories being attacked. That is what I mean. But yeah, peace is definitely about forgiveness, love and harmony for all nations and peoples.
Well, thank you very much. That brings the period for questions to an end. Thank you for dealing with those questions single-handed. We now move on to Le Keneve, and the proposition is the Nobel Peace Prize is hypocritical. Yes, Lily.
What is peace? This question is surrounded by speculation. Some would say peace is a state of mutual harmony between people or groups. Some would say it's freedom from civil unrest or disorder. To a certain extent, the definition of peace is subjective. However, the interpretation of peace as a state or period in which there is no war or a war has ended is a definition that few would argue with. The Nobel Peace Prize, established by Alfred Nobel, is an international award given every year to significant efforts made to promote peace and resolve conflicts globally. It recognises actions like ending wars, promoting human rights, and working towards disarmament. It is obvious that an award founded on such noble sentiments does have some good qualities, including giving international recognition for winners and encouraging those to follow in their footsteps. However, the prize is not without its controversies and grey areas. In other words, the prize nominally stands for peace, but is this enough? Might it be considered tokenistic? Might it be seen as an expression of a wealthy Western culture's need to create and promote prestigious awards that cease to have long-term legacies after the glittering ceremonies? In short, is the Nobel Prize marked by the stench of hypocrisy? And does it even succeed in what it attempts to achieve? Thank you.
Is this reward really as remarkable or relevant as people claim it is? The Nobel Peace Prize carries a number of problems that we can't ignore. To begin with, Alfred Nobel intended it to honour those who make significant contributions to society, yet over time the Peace Prize has drifted from its original purpose. Since World War I, it has shifted towards celebrating peace work, things like disarmament, negotiations and human rights efforts. These are valuable, yes, but they represent a very different interpretation of Nobel's initial vision. And let's not forget who Alfred Nobel was. He is remembered not only for the prize, but for inventing explosive innovations that fundamentally changed warfare. Nobel argued that arming societies could promote peace by creating deterrence, but that idea falls apart when we look at the world today. Explosives continue to devastate communities and conflicts across the globe. Even thousands of years ago, Homer recognised this truth when he wrote in the Odyssey, "For iron of itself draws a man through it." In other words, the existence of weapons often provokes violence, not peace. When we point out the contradictions of the Nobel Peace Prize, we are not dismissing peace. We are not rejecting its ideas. We are challenging the prize to be better, more transparent and more accountable.
Other concerns have been raised about the possible political motivation of the nominees, considering there is a great quantity of prize money for the winner. There are records of contestants falsifying memoirs just to increase their chance of winning the money. Rigoberta Menchú, the prize winner in 1992, falsified events in her book, Yo, Rigoberta Menchú, that never even eventuated, demonstrating the committee's lack of background research. Additionally, nominees of a similar stance to that of Donald Trump presumably crave to achieve this esteemed award as an asset for self-promotion, as if it is simply an advantageous handhold in the political climb, failing their so-called altruism and revealing instead their cynicism. Is it wholly for the selflessness of creating a significant difference or solely for political advancement? Furthermore, the committee judging the award has raised multiple queries. Many peace advocates would object that the award should no longer be judged by perhaps out-of-date politicians who have a historical tendency to be Eurocentric in their awarding, with over half the laureates being Europeans. Perhaps a more varied panel would improve fairness and a more contemporary view, leading on to our next point of the conceivable discrimination of the prize.
Many people may assume that the Nobel Peace Prize takes account of all religions and genders. However, a significant majority of all Nobel laureates, including Peace Prize winners, come from Western countries, with pitiful amounts of winners from large parts of Africa, Southeast and Central Asia, and Central America. Historically, women and minorities have faced significant barriers in accessing education, research opportunities, and leadership positions in relevant fields. Societal norms and biases have often undervalued the contributions of women and people of colour in science, literature, and peace efforts. Many feminists would probably object that over the years, this annual event has been awarded to 92 men. But in contrast, only 20 women have received the award. That is only 17.8% overall. However, I am aware that in recent years, people of ethnic minority have been selected for this award. This comes nowhere near redressing the balance.
As well as these varied negative factors, the prize has been widely accused of its prematurity, as the prize rewards potential and aspiration rather than concrete achieved results in promoting peace. For example, when Barack Obama received the prize in 2009, which was awarded for his intentions and diplomatic visions, he had only been in office for 9 months. 3 months later, Obama paved the way for negotiations with the Russian Federation about nuclear arms, contradicting what peace could potentially stand for. We would now like to conclude our argument through the act of our opening statement. The Nobel Peace Prize is hypocritical through our points of the questionable origin, the baselines, the political motivation, the inequality, and the prematurity of the prize. We believe that we have made a strong and convincing statement as to how the prize could cause possible conflict and tensions, as well as how the creating story of the prize could cause suspicion as to how noble the prize really is.
Thank you, Leigh. First question is from Cole, then Sam Sterry, then Maisie Luff, then William Keir. Cole.
During the first part of your speech, you gave your own kind of definition of peace. Wouldn't you say the definition given by our keynote speaker, fraternity between nations and reduction of standing armies, isn't this the definition of what was meant by peace by Nobel?
Yes, who will take that one then?
I asked with the definition of peace that you gave, don't we take the definition given by our keynote speaker, reduction of standing armies for fraternity between nations, isn't this what was meant by peace by Nobel?
Yes, when there are lots and lots of lights on, there's a limit to how many lights can come on. So because I'm having questions next from Sam Sterry, Maisie Luff, William Keir, and then Isabella, you can now turn your lights off. Right, do you want to answer that question?
I do agree. We got our definitions from Oxford University, so yeah, and I think there are lots of different definitions of peace. However, we just stated the ones that we found the most factual.
Thank you. Sam Sterry.
Surely it should be for the actions of a person and how good it was in advocating peace, irregardless of their gender, religion or race in receiving the Nobel Prize.
Yes.
Yes, that is a good point. However, I am acknowledging the fact that women specifically of ethnic minority are receiving the award more regularly in recent years. However, is this just because the judging committee feel almost guilty for all those years missed when potentially not as deserving white men won? And yes, it didn't just come down to ethnicity or gender, but people missed out on those opportunities because of their ethnicity and gender.
Thank you. Maisie Luff.
Surely, even if it wasn't Alfred's initial intentions, it still helps. As you said, the prize helped cause ceasefires and pausing wars. So why should you challenge the prize if you're saying that it also helps?
May you please repeat that question?
Surely, if it wasn't Alfred's initial intentions, it still helped. As you said, the prize helped cause ceasefires and pauses in wars. So why should you challenge it if you're saying it also helps?
Whilst it creates ceasefires, we weren't contradicting it. We believe that there are positive notions to everything, but we're focusing mainly on the negatives and how it could improve to become better.
Thank you. William Keir.
In your speech, you suggested that some of the nominees for the Nobel Prize were only there in order to win the prize money. However, could the prize money won by the person who wins it not be used to further their causes? And even in the cases where the winner was perhaps not as deserving as some of the other nominees, for example, Barack Obama, he went on to then donate that money that he won from winning the prize to a children's charity.
I would agree, but I believe that we should not be motivated by money to create peace. We should create peace from the goodness of our hearts.
Thank you. Isabella Piscal.
In your speech, you mentioned transparency on the selection of the winner of the award. So how would you suggest the winner be selected? Because as I do agree, the behind closed doors, the winner being chosen could be quite controversial. But what would you suggest instead?
I think we would suggest that we get a mix of the ex-politicians we already have and perhaps youth and climate activists who are wanting peace for the future and are not focused on past ideals.
And a final question from Sam Spears.
During your speech, you mentioned figures like Trump, who, through their own selfish ideas, tried and get the prize. Surely their own character does not diminish their efforts towards peace.
I would agree, but I do not believe that someone so violent towards ethnicities and people who are illegal immigrants could be described as peaceful and deserved of winning that award. I agree that he has stopped wars and he's paid a great contribution to stopping wars and not creating any wars in America, but that's just one thing. I do not believe that he is a peaceful person.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Lekanova, for dealing with those questions so well. I'll move on to Bolia, and their proposition is entitled A Symbol That No Longer Serves Its Purpose. Yes.
The debate surrounding the Nobel Peace Prize raises fundamental questions. Does it still serve a meaningful purpose in promoting world peace today? Despite the global attention and international honour behind the prize, it could be argued that the world has evolved far more rapidly than the prize itself, meaning its significance has gradually diminished. The Nobel Peace Prize recognises and celebrates influential figures, but despite its undeniable symbolism, recognition and fame cannot substitute progress. And whilst it continues to highlight injustices and elevates certain individuals, the attraction of headlines cannot resolve conflict. Articles cannot resolve oppression, and newspapers cannot rebuild shattered nations. Achieving world peace requires long-term global commitment, international cooperation, and moral amendments, none of which can be achieved through symbolic awards.
The controversy surrounding some of the Nobel Peace Prize recipients also raises questions about its judgment and legitimacy, with several awards being presented prematurely, such as Barack Obama in 2009. Many argued that Obama's impact wasn't worthy of the award, and America faced immediate backlash, raising questions surrounding the irony behind granting the Nobel Peace Prize to a president whose country was embroiled in the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, launching airstrikes and military raids in other countries. Many critics argued that the premature prizes only recognised the recipient's intent rather than the real and measurable progress, which was evident in 1906 when Theodore Roosevelt was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. This was seen as controversial, as many viewed Roosevelt as an imperialist and a military-mad leader, leading many to speculate the Norwegian Nobel Committee only chose Roosevelt to gain a powerful ally for Norway. Not only does the premature recognition undermine the prize's credibility, it risks placing unrealistic expectations and highlights the little achievements of individuals who aren't tackling the underlying problems and who often end up contradicting the values that the prize claims to uphold.
One of the greatest flaws of the prize is its inability to focus on global recognition and unity. The Nobel Peace Prize often rewards individuals for conflicts that require collective global action, and as we all know, modern conflicts are complex and involve governments, institutions, and communities. Peace cannot be influenced by individual heroism alone, yet the prize continues to frame stability as a result of a single leader. The limitations of the Nobel Peace Prize rise further when considering the changing nature of conflict, but wars and conflicts are no longer confined to the battlefields. We now face cyber attacks, misinformation, campaigns, economic instability, terrorism, and global power struggles, which are increasingly shaped by technology. The Nobel Peace Prize has failed to adapt, and its methods and criteria belong to an ancient era, with the prize's reliance on outdated views and individual recognition. It is failing to reflect the complexity and support required in our modern world. Additionally, the selection process further diminishes the prize's relevance, which recently became apparent via Bill Gates, who sought Jeffrey Epstein's help to attain the Nobel Peace Prize, with it being one thing his billions cannot buy. The decisions are made by a small committee whose perspectives, cultural backgrounds, and political influences represent only a fraction of the world. This narrow lens then results in choices which only reflect Western ideals of peace, not neutral agreements, and as a global conflict becomes increasingly complex, a prize driven by limited viewpoints cannot reflect a global vision of peace.
Despite the Nobel Peace Prize's ability to highlight important issues, it cannot create the concrete change that modern peace building demands. The prize does not implement policies, support reconstruction, or create moral foundations, and instead the prize offers symbolic recognition, which, although valuable in appearance, remains limited in effect. While symbolic gestures can inspire, alone they cannot challenge social injustice. The origins of the Nobel Peace Prize also continue to challenge its importance. The founder, Alfred Nobel, attained his wealth through the production of explosives and weapons, tools that undeniably continue to fuel conflict. And whilst Alfred Nobel's intentions for redemption may have been sincere, the contradiction remains undeniable. The Nobel Peace Prize is a legacy created through instruments of destruction, which now acts as an inspiration of peace. The historical irony continues to downplay the prize and challenges the purpose and purity of its intentions. In addition, one of this year's nominees was Donald Trump, someone who we all know does not embody the qualities traditionally associated with peace. He is currently facing 36 counts of first-degree falsification of business records, 30 allegations of sexual misconduct, including rapes, harassments, and groping, with some allegations involving underage girls. So, tell me, is this the type of man who should win a Nobel Peace Prize?
Given this, how can we claim that the prize still upholds its original values when an individual with such record is being nominated? Not to mention the ongoing Epstein scandal, which, although none of us have definite answers to, raises serious concerns about his character. By nominating a person with a history such as this, it feels as though these behaviours are being indirectly acknowledged as peaceful, which undermines the integrity of the prize itself. Ultimately, the Nobel Peace Prize once held immense significance, arguably decreasing the
incidences of human rights violations, supporting women's rights and placing international pressure on governments, as seen in 1996 when East Timor was awarded with the prize. However, in our world today, it can be seen as more as an annual tradition than a meaningful driving force towards change. It is a symbol that has failed to adapt, failed to intervene, and failed to influence real global change. If true peace is to be achieved, we must look beyond materialistic rewards and instead towards actions. Peace must come from a collective action, global cooperation, and meaningful efforts to address the causes, not just the consequences of violence. The Nobel Peace Prize no longer holds the influence needed to achieve world peace, and its relevance has faded.
Thank you very much. Look at that sea of questions coming toward you. The first question is from Travis.
Okay, so I'll ask a question. Do you believe that the prize should be awarded to people who end wars? Just nod if yes. Oh, so you don't think it should be awarded to people who don't end wars? Okay, well, I was going to ask. Because people like Donald Trump, during his second term right now, has ended over 7 wars, which is about 1 war per month. So
Donald Trump has also banned abortions and taken away women's rights in the US. So how does that promote peace? Because it causes people to be, there's so many more conflicts around that as well. So there's more than just the wars going on in other countries.
Eleanor Doherty.
If the prize truly no longer serves its purpose, then how do we explain the measurable impact many laureates continue to have on conflict resolutions and peace movements today?
Could you please repeat that?
If the prize truly no longer serves its purpose, then how do we explain the measurable impact many laureates continue to have on conflict resolutions and peace movements today?
While some winners are impactful, others are controversial or only symbolic, showing the prize's inconsistency.
William Keir.
In your speech, you said that the Nobel Prize was awarded to Roosevelt. However, I'd like to remind you that the statement that we're arguing about today is the Nobel Peace Prize relevant today, not 100 years ago when Roosevelt was awarded it. Additionally, you also suggested that the only reason why Roosevelt was given the prize was to form an alliance or to help foster an alliance between Norway and the United States. However, we have more recent examples, like when the award was given to a Chinese dissident, which led to China placing tariffs on the country of Norway in response. How do you respond?
Let's respond to that.
Sorry, what was the actual question in that?
You asked to respond to that list of facts, really.
So, first, I'd like you to respond to: is it really true to argue about something that happened 100 years ago in a debate about what is going on today?
Yes, it is, because going back in history shows how far we have come today. So we then also spoke about Donald Trump, who is one of the upcoming people to be nominated for the prize. And we think it's important to go back into history to see how far it's come from that.
All right, thank you. Liana Keith.
What other ways could you suggest to raise awareness if not using fame and popularity?
Who wants to stand and answer this question?
I think awareness is brought in many other ways, like the media or the news, or just like global knowledge and education.
Thank you. Nia Watson.
You spoke a lot about the current Trump scandal, but he didn't actually win, so surely that proves that the voting is somewhat fair.
Who wants to respond to this one?
Even if Donald Trump is only nominated, the nomination itself is significant. It draws public attention, implicitly associating him with the award. This raises questions about its credibility.
Thank you. Cole Greener.
Isn't a prize that celebrates hope for peace relevant, especially in modern times where many people may lack hope for global unity?
Could you repeat that, please?
Isn't a prize that celebrates hope for peace relevant, especially in modern times where people may lack hope for global unity?
Yes, however, peace can only do so much, and actions have the most impact. And with peace and like symbolism, you need more to be done than just to be said.
Thank you. Question from Isabella Piscal.
In your speech, you mentioned origins and Alfred Nobel's occupation. How do you think that affects the winners of the prize to this day?
It shows an influence on the prize. So the fact that people are being given a prize for peace when everything about the funding for that prize came from everything that defeats peace, and the fact that he's created weapons and those are the weapons being used in wars, and it doesn't make sense to be using that money to support peace when none of it came from peace.
Last question from Alexander Powell.
I'm sure you can agree that the prize raises awareness for its winners. Is this awareness not vital for charities that rely on public awareness and donations to fulfill their cause, such as last year's winner being the Japanese charity for nuclear disarmament?
Acknowledging individual success doesn't erase the prize's broader limitations. Recognition alone doesn't solve conflicts, rebuild nations, or solve root causes of violence.
Well, thank you, Bolia, for dealing with those difficult questions. That concludes. Now, finally, Victoria College make their presentation entitled The Nobel Peace Prize in 2025, a Symbol Without Strength. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we argue that the Nobel Peace Prize has become a symbol without strength. Yes, it still carries enormous symbolic value, a moral halo attached to its recipient, but symbolism only matters if it reflects reality. A symbol should represent an idea. In this case, peace, moral leadership, and the promotion of human strength through non-violence. But what happens when that symbol is repeatedly contradicted by the actions of the people who receive it? Over time, the prize has been mutilated by its own recipients. When awards are given out to blood-stained figures, the symbol of peace weakens further. It becomes aspirational rather than credible and a travesty of its original meaning. A symbol that is constantly attacked by accusations of illegitimacy and scandal loses authority. It loses soft power, and crucially, it loses strength. So our case is simple. The Nobel Peace Prize may still be recognisable, but recognition without integrity is meaningless. A symbol that no longer reflects peace cannot claim to represent it.
The Nobel Peace Prize has for a long time been a symbol of collaboration and effort for peace. However, over time, there has been many blunders from the arguably biased selection committee. As said multiple times, in 1973, Henry Kissinger won the Nobel Peace Prize alongside Lee Ducteau for their work in the Paris Peace Accords, which prompted the withdrawal of US troops from the Vietnam War. While Kissinger accepted the award, Lee Ducteau declined, believing peace had not actually been achieved in Vietnam. More recently, in 2019, Abiy Ahmed Ali won the Peace Prize. A year later, one of the worst wars in the 21st century erupted from Tigray, Ethiopia. Abiy Ahmed, who had been part of the Tigray coalition where the dispute broke out, is seen as one of the biggest contributors to the war. It is often seen that candidates from less internationally powerful countries go overlooked, one of the best examples being Mahatma Gandhi, who, although nominated 5 times, never won the award. It was commonly believed that Gandhi, an anti-colonialist activist, winning the prize would unsettle Norway's relationship with the powerful British Empire. It is clear to see that the giant has fallen, with too many wrong choices stemming from the impossible subjectivity of peace. The Nobel Peace Prize now stands as a symbol weakened by the actions of those who have and have not won it.
People often talk about the Nobel Peace Prize as if it's the ultimate symbol of peace, but in reality, its legitimacy is far less solid than its reputation suggests. The prize is awarded by a small committee in Norway, formed mainly of retired Norwegian politicians, not by an unbiased global institution. And over the years, it's repeatedly been criticised for reflecting the political preferences of liberal democracies rather than the collective will of the international community. Nations such as China, Russia, Ukraine, along with many others, don't recognise it as an authoritative measure of contributing to peace, and some even view it as a political mouthpiece rather than a neutral honour. When we compare it with the institutions that do hold real influence, like the United Nations, the contrast is undeniable. The UN can deploy peacekeepers, negotiate ceasefires, and organise international agreements, whereas the Nobel Peace Prize offers only symbolism with no strength.
The Nobel Peace Prize once stood as the world's shining emblem of peace and moral leadership, a symbol carrying immense value and moral halo. Yet, over time, it has become, as we and many others argue, a symbol without strength. Why? Because its power depends on who holds it and their actions. From Abiy Ahmed Ali in 2019 to Henry Kissinger in 1973, the prize has often been awarded to figures whose later choices or histories cast shadows on its meaning. A symbol of peace, yes, but one often mutilated by politics and controversy. Still, even a weakened symbol holds worth. The Nobel Prize reminds the world that peace matters, that there are individuals and movements striving towards a collective goal. Even when global unity falters, in a world with conflict spread all over, symbolic acts still hold weight to many. In a fragmented world, symbols like the Nobel Peace Prize give us something to rally around, a reflection of our shared hope for cooperation and compassion. So perhaps its true strength lies not in its power, but in its inspirational value. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to Shire College. I'll move on to questions, and the first question is William Keir, then Eleanor Doherty, and then Niall Watson. William.
In your speech, you said that one of the only reasons why Gandhi was not awarded the Nobel Peace Prize was because it may upset other colonial powers. However, a more recent example would be when the prize was awarded to a Chinese dissident, which led to China placing tariffs upon Norway. Does this not show that the Nobel Committee is willing to, even through the face of controversy and potential retaliation by other powerful nations, work towards giving the most deserving candidate the award?
Yes, we acknowledge that point, and it's truthful. The Nobel Peace Prize is slowly changing over time. However, as a way to change, we need to acknowledge the past which happened and its colonial and ties with other colonial nations. We accept that it is changing, but we also, as stated, need to acknowledge what's happened so that we can change to be better in the future.
Thank you. Eleanor Doherty.
Is the problem truly with the prize or the unrealistic expectation that a symbolic award must single-handedly end global conflict?
Yes.
I don't think any of us here in this room are saying that the Nobel Peace Prize should be the only way for us to achieve peace in this country. We acknowledge there's many other groups, there's people like UNICEF, United Nations, many other non-governmental organisations, all pushing for peace, as the leaders of our nations and also we, the people, should try and push for it as well.
Thank you. Niall Watson.
You said that it didn't have any strength, but surely it has strength enough to attract global attention to the problems going on in the world and add it to the media.
In our term strength, we are talking about hard power to actually physically change things on its own. We acknowledge the soft power of influence, as many others have. Its power isn't in the fact that it can deploy troops like the United Nations, that it can give money to impoverished groups or NGOs, even though it does to the winners. Its power is in its symbolic strength and its soft power, not hard strength.
Thank you. Luke Figueira Aird.
So you said that the prize is often given to people that then disrupt peace, like Abiy Ahmed, for example. But how is the Norwegian committee supposed to predict for certain these actions that can happen months later when voting?
It is more to see that people who have won it have gone on to do harm. Would you want a prize where people like that have then received it?
Thank you. Colin Powell.
While, of course, it's easy to criticise the Nobel, what do you suggest we replace such a significant peace prize with?
I don't think anything should necessarily replace it. We think that there is symbolism with it, but we just think it lacks any actual strength to stop things like wars.
Travis Durkin.
How would you change the nomination process for people who become laureates for organisations?
Not necessarily that the nomination process should change, but that the way that it is deciding it should change. It should be more open for people to see. People who are deciding the Nobel laureates should be held accountable for their choices and their actions.
Thank you. Mirren Martin.
If you were to remove the prize, how would you justify taking away the life-changing funding from the organisations that rely on it?
We don't plan on removing the prize, simply changing it to evolve for the better.
Thank you. Evie Thompson.
How do you plan on reforming it?
Any volunteers for that one?
Okay, as I've stated, we feel that it should be changing the decision process for Nobel laureates, as we've already stated, and we acknowledge there may be other communal efforts needed to change it for the better. So we should get the people's input, we should get our nation leaders to also aid in representing us to change it for the better as a global effort.
And the last question from Lily O'Connor.
You spoke about hard peace, but surely that would cause conflict. Do you disagree?
Apologies, can you repeat the question?
You spoke about hard peace, but surely that would cause conflict. Do you disagree?
We didn't talk about hard peace, we talked about the fact that it lacked hard power, and that is not the role of the Nobel Peace Prize, so it's irrelevant.
Well, thank you very much for dealing with those questions. Victoria College. Well, that brings the debates to an end, and it's rather sad, actually. I very much enjoyed it. I hope you all have as well. I'd like to congratulate you all for what you've done this morning. It's no small thing to speak in an arena like this, where you've never, I think, spoken before, at least the vast majority of you. And whether you're old hands at public speaking or this is your first time, I'd like to congratulate you on excellent performances. And I'd like also to say it's one thing to make a speech or take part in making a presentation, but to ask difficult questions as you have and then respond to a question on the hoof is really quite tricky. So you've done terribly well in responding to questions. That's really quite a hard thing to manage. So congratulations again, and for all the hard work and research you've put into this. You now have a chance to use the voting buttons in a proposition to be suggested by me. Don't cast your votes yet, because the voting won't be open until I announce that it is open. And the proposition is the Nobel Peace Prize still has a useful purpose today. The Nobel Peace Prize still has a useful purpose today. Now, in a moment, the voting will be open, and in front of you there are 3 buttons. P is a vote pour, in favour of the motion. C is the vote contre, against the motion. and the A is the abstention button. So you can choose one of those 3 votes, and for as long as the voting is open, you can change your vote until I ask the greffier to close the voting. After that point, your vote is fixed, and I'll then announce the result. So the motion is the Nobel Peace Prize still has a useful purpose today, and I ask the greffier to open the voting. If you've all had the opportunity of casting their votes, I ask the greffier to close the voting. And I can announce that the proposition has been rejected. There were 12 votes in favour and 24 votes against, no abstentions. So most of you do not believe that the Nobel Peace Prize still has a useful purpose today, which is interesting. Well, that concludes the debate, and I ask Tony Roberts of the Rotary Club to address us.
Well, good morning, and thank you for an absolutely wonderful debate. You looked at things that I would not have thought of in 1,000 years. So, congratulations on all the work that you've done to create such as I say, a splendid debate. I just wanted to say a few things about Rotary, because though this is the Colin Powell Peace Debate, Colin was a Rotarian for probably about 50 years. And Rotary, the Rotary Club of Jersey, is part of Rotary International, which is one of the largest charities in the world. And every day, Rotary spends about $1 million on charitable objectives. And one of those objectives is peace. And of that $1 million, Rotary spends probably about 25% on peace projects throughout the world. It's a global organisation with a lot of members in every country in the world. And we also actually support students who go on to peace universities. And there are 7 peace universities throughout the world. And every year, Rotary supports around about 500 students that come from, again, across the globe to do a peace degree. And those students go on to have very influential positions in the world, people that have got the ability to be able to change and create a world that you've been talking about today. You know, they work for the World Health Organization, they work for UN, they become very high in working in the legal profession. So it's a marvellous organisation. I think the other thing that I would like to just to talk to you about really is the role that young people play in Rotary. Not only as, sorry, I've got a cold, but that young people play. And also how we define, again, which you've talked about today, how we define peace. Because peace is not just the lack of conflict. It's all those other things that make a great world for your generation and also for some of us that are in an older generation. So we do lots of things to encourage young people to become involved in communities, to become involved particularly in environmental issues. We look at peace as not just being the absence of conflict. It's what else is taking place in the world. It's the clean water, it's the education, it's the equality, it's the diversity. And all those things came out in the debate which we've just had today. So I want to say thank you again for all the work that you've done, for all the support of the teachers that I'm sure have, been supporting you whilst you've been developing your themes and your arguments. For the State's Gref for always making us so welcome at the debate which we've had today and the debates which we've had in the past, and for the bailiff for keeping things under control and making sure that people have their ideas represented and that we all stamp our feet and say that we've really, really had a wonderful morning. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yes.
Oh, yes, sorry, the announcement. That's very important, isn't it? Very interesting. It's very close. It's been a very close debate because you have put forward some wonderful arguments. But the winner is Holier School. So congratulations.
I'm presenting the trophy, am I?
Yes.
Oh, that's rather lovely. Right. Do you want to come up, the four of you? Well, congratulations. When you won, you were stamping your own feet at yourselves. Well, congratulations, that's tremendous. Who wants to look after it?
Thank you.
Well done, well done. Labour,
Oh yes, it'd be a good smile from all of you now. Thank you. I'm sure we'll be fine.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Just pick one of you first. Okay.
Well, can I thank you finally once again all for coming and contributing today, and for your supporters, other students, parents, teachers, and indeed there are one or two states members, elected members who've been watching this morning, and of course welcome them as well. And of course there are elections in Jersey next year, and I'm sure that the elected members would all wish you to participate in those elections, and maybe one of you or two of you or even more of you will one day be occupying these seats as members of the states of Jersey. So thank you very much for a very fine debate and for participating, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed watching you this morning. Thank you very much.